Meeting of the Lord's Council. If you will rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you will, please remain standing. We had a long-term servant of Wesley Chapel pass away this previous month. Chuck Adams had been on the planning board for a number of years, very involved in Wesley Chapel, as well as his wife. And we mourn for Chuck's loss and definitely offer up our thoughts to Gayla with his loss. And I'd like to take just a couple minutes, if we can, and a moment of silence to remember Chuck. Thank you. We're honored tonight to have probably the pastor of one of the newest churches in Wesley Chapel to be with us. Rick Parker is the minister, is the pastor at Ignite City Church. He'll be offering our invocation. His wife Sissy, we've got a twofer tonight. His wife Sissy is also a minister. Rick has agreed to provide an invocation tonight. We're honored to have him. Rick, if you would.
Great. Thanks a lot, guys. So, Heavenly Father, so we just come to you, Lord, the best way we know how. We come to you in the name of Jesus. We come to you, Lord, tonight with our hearts open to you. We're receptive, Lord, to what you have to say to us here in this very moment, Lord. And your word says that if there's any among us that lacks wisdom, we can ask. So, Lord, right now we're asking for wisdom from you, Lord Jesus. Lord, you said that you would give it to us, Lord, so we're asking and we're receiving it right now, Lord. Would you just help us, Lord, to have a body, even all these council members right here, Lord, this body will be united in a special way here tonight, only in the way that you can do supernaturally, Lord. So we just thank you, Lord, for doing that. We thank you, Lord, for the privilege we have of serving our community. Lord, we can't do it by ourselves, Lord, so we're counting on you, Lord, to help us to do everything we need to do, Lord. So we're grateful for all that you are. Thank you for all that you do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Rick.
So that brings us to public comments. So it's my understanding we just have one person signed up for public comments.
Yes.
Sir, if you will approach the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Frank Capella. I live at 3901 Voltaire Drive. My number is 917-922-8783. So I have some comments here. I just want to talk briefly about this year's Union County Public School bond. I'm a Wesley Chapel resident, as I mentioned, and the things I'm concerned about are taxes, fair play, and economic development for our area and for our county. At the center of the school bond are two large projects: the building of a new East Elementary School in Monroe and a new Forest Hills High School in Marshville. Both buildings would be two-story facilities. The current East Elementary School, I think, is 70 years old. I think the Forest Hills High School is 60 years old. And here are some reasons why I think we should, as a community, support this. First, fair play. That, to me, is the most obvious reason. These Eastern Union County kids and their families deserve state-of-the-art facilities. It's as simple as that. Wesley Chapel Elementary, Weddington, Marvin, Cuthbertson schools are rated among the best in the entire state. How do we possibly deny East and Forest Hill students and their families the chance to have the same advantages our students have enjoyed for years here in Wesley Chapel? The second reason for me is school performance. In 2019, a study by the Los Angeles Unified School District found that spending 4 years in a new school increases test scores by 10%, of a standard deviation in math and 5% in English language arts. If you factor in learning loss, those numbers could prove to be crucial to the entire school system. Also, school attendance increases when students learn at a new facility. And third, for our area to consider, is economic development and corporate tax revenue. I believe the biggest winner of this bond would be economic development for our county and our area, especially in and around the Monroe Bypass. Having a new state-of-the-art school is an excellent recruiting tool for luring mid and large cap companies to our area. The proposed Forest Hills High School would sit at the foot of the Monroe bypass, and any company workforce that's looking to relocate to our area, if they have kids, will look upon these new schools as big positives, and it could mean the difference of when trying to win business for our county. So if that happens, Union County will receive a corporate tax benefit, thus we benefit from that as well. I think the success around the bypass is probably the biggest factor for if our area, if Union County is really serious about long-term growth. I think it's going to be less focused on our side of the county and more focused around that bypass area. And I think if we're serious about securing economic growth for the county, a new school in that area would be pivotal in achieving growth objectives. The county commissioners voted to use $10 million of the American Rescue Plan funding to pay down the school debt, taking a large bite out of potential taxpayer liability. So this gives residents in our area financial parity with other districts and makes the school bond a sensible long-term investment, I think, for our entire community. And I urge my fellow Wesley Chapel residents to consider supporting the school bond. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
That brings us to additions, deletions, and adoption of agenda. Do anybody have anything they would like to add or delete? I need to add in the consent agenda, I need to add the proclamation for this month. I need to add the proclamation for October for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So I would like to add that proclamation to the consent agenda. Do you have anything else you'd like to add or delete?
Make a motion we approve it with the noted change.
Second.
All in favor? All in favor? And that brings us to the approval of the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. And then that brings us to item number 5, the presentation on the UCPS school bond by UCPS Board Vice Chair Kathy Heintel and Michelle Morris.
Thank you. And Reverend Jimmy Benchen, Senior, who's also on the Board of Education. I think Mr. Capella did it really well, but you have the presentation in front of you, right? Okay. So, over the last 17 years, we've either renovated or built 30 new schools. From the west side of the school mostly, and that shows you what those schools were. And there was bond for that as well. The bond is for $134.4 million to replace 2 schools, East Elementary and Forest Hills High School. Forest Hills High School is not a great building for a high school. The cafeteria is too small. There's not enough classrooms for CTE classes and stuff like that. Career technology, education. So it's like your car, auto repair, we have carpentry, we have welding, we have all those things, and a lot more of that will go into Forest Hills once it's rebuilt. The existing building for Forest High School is going to stay. And hopefully in a year or two we'll get some money to renovate it and move East Union Middle School into the old high school. East Union sits on 74. They play Frogger going across 74 to get to school, and we need to have them on the same campus for athletic fields and all that kind of stuff like we have in the West. So that's the idea that we have to do that. Do you have anything else on East? We need the bond to address aging facilities. Like Mr. Capella said, they're old buildings. We need to address them. They have a lot of mobile classrooms that we need to get rid of, and that is the reason we're doing it. A lot of our high schools in Union County are older. Sun Valley, Parkwood, Piedmont, Forest Hills, Monroe. So we're trying to do stuff to each of those schools. And again, East is going to be, the new school is going to be a 2-story. We're going to build it on the same site that it's there now while the kids are going to school. It's kind of interesting. So, it'll be interesting. And after that, it'll be demolished and it'll be a parking lot and fields and things like that.
So they'll continue to go to East until the new one is built?
Yes. They will end the existing building until the new one is built behind it.
I got it.
Yes. And some of the pictures show that. Once you demolish what's in front, will be the parking lot and some of the fields and playgrounds. And then the other is the back where the buses are. And part of it is that we have a lot of pre-K classes at Walter Bickett Education Center, and we want to move those kids to elementary school. So part of the extension that's on the picture is for kindergarten and pre-K classes because they have to have bathrooms and things like that in their classrooms. So we'll move the East kids that are in pre-K into that building as well, which would be nice. Forest Hills High School, $95.8 million. It's 60 years old. We bought 135 acres about a year ago that's adjacent to the existing facility, which is great. And we'll keep because we're going to keep the existing building it and build a new one. It'll be 2 stories. We're going to have lots of CTE classes there, which will help with the economy and the business in the bypass. Want to do any pictures? Go ahead.
Greetings, Mayor, Council. Just to go back to East real quickly, when we came to our new beloved county in 1998, same year that you all were established, 2 of our children went to East Elementary. And I can tell you, as much as they've done to beautify it or whatever it is, from a practical standpoint, extremely old. So the East project is well deserved, and it will allow, especially parking. There's a bad, like everybody has a problem with parking, that will resolve their parking concerns.
There's a meeting next week at East, so people can come in to see it. Just if they want to see why the community meeting, so that people can see why we need to have a new school. And the same thing with Forest Hills. There's only one more. What? We have one more. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I can speak to the need of East. As to the needs of Forest Hills, when we came here in 1998, I love sports, and our children participate in sports. And when we went to our first basketball game at Forest Hills High School, and when I walked into that facility, I really believed that I was walking back into Mayberry Yard, and I'm talking about old Mayberry, I'm talking about old Andy, I couldn't understand why, in modern times, this is 1998, why they were in a place like that. But they since built a new gym. And so building a new school to complement that new gym, to complement what they've done from the academic side to the athletic side, to the CTE side, to the community side, is going to bring tremendous. And I think nobody could have said it better than our one speaker.
Right, we're not recreating anything. We're keeping the gym that was built in 2010, and the football field will stay as well. It's beautiful. And we will do ball fields. Yes. Softball and
it's going to be a wonderful complex when it's all is
It'll be great with the middle school.
as far as those, you know, and I'm giving you personal experience on site. People like to have on site, so that is an on site history of those two facilities.
So we went to the county for a 10-year plan. We had an ad hoc committee that the county put together to talk with us in SPCC about our 10-year plan. So this was Forest Hills and East were the first, and you can see on there that the other proposed projects did not get funded. So those will go on, hopefully, in the next bond that goes to it.
We talked about.
But, yes, they did not.
On what timeline?
Well, we had a 10, I have no idea, because we had a 10-year plan to bond every 2 years, and because we have to do it on even years, so everything gets pushed at that point.
Well, we didn't have one 2 years ago, did we?
We asked for one, and
Okay.
thank you. We asked for one, and they didn't even vote on it.
Well, one of the things you said is that the county stepped up to spend $10 million of their funds to offset the cost. $10 million is a lot of money, I agree, but given the overall cost of this, is there anything, can we press them a little bit more from the county?
We tried. We did. And there was no explanation as to why they just voted for the 2 schools.
Because compared to their budget and what they've spent and what they've spent things on, I'm a big believer in infrastructure spending, and this seems almost too little for how fast our county is growing.
It would have been about 165 million if they had funded it all, the project. So it wasn't that much more than what this is.
Okay. Do we have a break? Because I get asked about this all the time. I can stop in the grocery store and start walking on the street. Do we have a cost per average household, what this is going to put on John D. resident?
Is 17.3 cents per 100,000. So $17 per 100,000 in value. And it was at the beginning 35.2, but because they paid down the debt by 10 million, and they cut it down.
And that is in the package.
It is.
Okay. And then you gave a list of what's next. You have number 1, number 2, but everybody's going to ask what's number 3 and number 4 from that list.
I can. The list is next. Is Parkwood is next for the high school. So we asked for the money to do the architects and things like that up front, so we could see what it would cost and what it would look like. So Parkwood would be next, but that was on the first bond. Thank you. And so we didn't get that. So we're trying to figure out what we're going to do next. But Parkwood's next, and then Peak Bond's next after that.
And the other question I have gotten from a lot of residents is, will this reduce, 2 questions here. 1, will this reduce class size per student, number of students per class?
No.
Okay.
So the
Talking
older...
you talking universal for the whole school district?
Yeah. One, are there going to be more classrooms physically?
Bigger classrooms physically. In the older schools, the classrooms are smaller than what in the middle and high are smaller than what is the...
I don't know how many classrooms are in a standard school, but are there going to be a larger number of classrooms?
Yes, for Forest Hills. Yes, for East Elementary.
And will there be the same number of students per class?
Well, there's no per class for high school, but yes. We're going to make the Forest Hills High School is going to be bigger than what sits there today. That's what you're asking. Yes, same thing with Parkwood.
I'm looking at the student to teacher ratio, is what I was coming from. Well,
Right.
Yeah, I know that, but I'm still asking questions. These are the questions that were asked of me specifically, and I didn't have answers to.
This is infrastructure to enable, and it has nothing to do with the number of teachers and student ratio, because that's a whole different funding conversation.
Yeah, but if they have more classrooms, and they have bigger classrooms, it would affect the student population.
I'm just trying to get answers to questions that people in Western Chapel have asked me, And while they're doing their presentation, like one,
That's okay.
get a
In
short
high
answer.
school, it's typically 40 to 1. Now, right now at Forest Hills, it's smaller than that.
Yes.
That's,
They have capacity in their school, but we're making it a little bigger in the core, which is the cafeteria and stuff, to make sure that if more development comes in because of the bypass, that we'll be ready for it.
And the infrastructure of Forest Hills is being built in such a way to cover that growth that hopefully will come to that part of the county.
So
it's
when
being built with that forecast in mind.
When we look at capacity, we use 40 to 1 for high school classrooms.
So when we look at the growth, the tremendous growth we've had in Union County, and what I'm seeing in different districts, not just in Union County, particularly with older schools, they are in no way situated for the number of children that you've crammed into. Period. When you have to have children have breakfast at 10 a.m. in order to get in there, when you have to limit parents being able to hand them a side to come and have lunch with a kindergartner or a first grader, it's just sad that we don't have those common facilities for people to have lunch, kids to have lunch in a routine, not have to have all of their specials all crammed together or shoehorned in places. So to be able to have the space for the special teachers, to be able to provide the services and everything else to the elementary schools, as well as the high schools and middle schools, it's just so important. We shoehorn so much in over the years that you reach a point that is not effective and functional. And I think that's where we're at with many of our schools. And, this is great progress, as Mr. Capella said, area of the county that's received less attention to really help bring about much better facilities for our children.
and you guys really do a thankless job. You work hard for what you're doing, and I'm sure you don't get a lot of pats on the back. So I will personally say thank you for all the hard work you guys have put in for
You're more than welcome. And in terms of, you mentioned less attention, actually a lot of the schools on the eastern side, in terms of dollars, more attention. But to your point of the oldness of the schools, I wholeheartedly agree.
There's a point to where the age of the school is to your detriment, and you can have the same maintenance budget and it does not go as far at all.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm. And so when we renovated Sun Valley, tough, because it's old and it's very expensive to renovate it because of the piping hanging down in the hallways, and it's just hard.
None of the schools were built, your schools maybe, were built for fourth grade students that have Chromebooks that have to be charged.
Yes.
And to have the electrical infrastructure in the schools to run just the technology that teachers and students use these days really points to the real fundamental limiting structures we have. The things teachers do to jump through hoops to use all of these things to make them possible, it's, kudos to them. But it would be
Yes,
great to be able to
totally.
If we're going to use technology, here it is, and here's how everything works, and you're just trying to figure it out on their own. I do have a question about Forest Hills, where you were talking about the CTE program. Which high schools offer that program, those type of programs?
All of our schools have some CTE courses. There's just a variety of different courses.
And any kid, sorry,
No, go ahead.
no, any student can go to another school to take their STT.
Yeah.
Right. For example, Parkwood has the welding shop, which you should go see because it's absolutely amazing. But you can go there if you live in Wesley Chapel or Marvin or Marshville, anywhere. So, yeah. And they have carpentry and auto repair. And I'm trying to think
One of the big ones at Forest Hills that we're going to be doing is Ag Tech. And so we're working with Wingate, and we're going to have that throughout that cluster.
I to say that's tremendously, you want to offer more specialists in whatever you can.
Yeah, and there's just a variety. We have things from culinary to all sorts of different, to business, all sorts of different things.
What kind of feedback have you gotten from people that you talked to on the street about this? Because when I spoke to people that approached me about it, they said, look, I've already squeezed enough, I've already spent enough on taxes, Yes, but this is infrastructure. And are you getting any pushback from the general public?
I have not, in the most common of manners, received that type of negativity. It's strictly great, awesome, can't wait. Yeah.
The hardest thing has been getting people to understand the bond. Like, we've had a lot of meetings, but not a lot of people show up to them, where we can tell them about the bond and what's going on there. But I think that's the hardest part. We're trying to push out the information as much as we can. And it was great that it went from 35 cents to 17, so that was a big thing as well.
I would encourage, the East, there's one thing that's coming up, that have folks go to that meeting, because we've been in meetings, and there's like 2 people.
Cheryl, is this something we use our sunshine list or our communications committee put on our website?
A lot of the municipalities have done that for us. We have a link that you can put on your website just about the bond.
I think when you talk about the $17 per 100, people need to understand, if you have a $500,000 house, it's less than $90 a year.
Yeah.
A year. We're not asking for a week or a month or anything else.
Yeah.
And the main reason that Wesley Chapel is such a great place to live and raise a family, which is our motto, because we have low taxes, we have good schools, and it's a great place to live. And we want to keep our motto, I think. And if we don't have good schools, we lose one of our jobs. So I commend you again.
It's great. You sit in with the 3 schools with A's, right? Yep.
Yeah. Very privileged to have been a parent.
Yes.
A public school student who was an honor Summa Cum Laude graduate at Elon, and one of our own group who graduated and went completely through public schools. And this is a tremendous school district and program, and I think it's tremendous. But sometimes we have to pay for the things we want.
But you're looking at the farm, 4 grants in county public schools.
Is there anything else that we can do on our end to maybe push either the county or the communications part to make your job easier?
If you talk to your neighbors and friends about it, it would be great. We, as a board members, we can't say vote yes for a bond. We just have to say please vote.
Are you using the PTAs?
We have parent, like grassroots parent groups at all of our schools, yes, that our principals have been working with. As Stephens, because she used to help put this all together.
Yes.
As a former bond girl.
In 16 she did it, right?
I think she did a couple.
That's the last time we had a bond, was 16.
Did any of the other board members have any questions?
What is the replacement project at Parkwood? Parkwood is actually a year older than Forest Hill, so I'm just curious as to...
So the idea is to build a whole new high school. We bought land next to Parkwood High to do that.
So Forest Hills obviously just has more needs than Parkwood,
Yes.
even though it's a... Okay.
I think Memphis had more renovations.
More renovations added then.
Okay.
And same with Piedmont. New cafeteria, new gym, new auditorium, that kind of stuff. So that was the difference.
And do you know what the replacement project is? I mean, you're not talking about the whole school,
Whole
right?
school.
At
Parkwood. Yes, at Parkwood, whole school. Piedmont would not be whole school.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Because they have a core that's all together, where their auditorium, cafeteria, and all that is next to it, and we bought land next to that as well.
Wow.
This project goes to 10 years. Do you have like any revolver range plan somewhere
We do.
on your website?
County only has for 10. So we did that,
But
yes.
if we were curious, we could go 5 year,
Yes,
10 plus.
yes. And we also have a CIP. Every year we get $16 million from the county to take renovations and HVAC, ADA stuff. But sometimes, if you have projects that's $3 or $4 million, that it takes a lot of. So anything that we can, that's a big project, we can put it on a bond. That would be great. So $16 million for 53 schools is not a lot.
Really quick. So if the bond passes, are you planning on pushing for another 1 or 2 years?
We're talking about it. Now, again, we have the 10-year plan that they have, that we did with SPCC.
Well, thank you for coming, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having us.
I see that we put a link on our website.
That'd be great, thank you. If you just Google UCPS bond, it comes right up. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you
Thank
very
you so much
much
for having us.
That brings us to the planning board report, and I also see our beautiful
Thank you.
vice chair of the planning board back there.
Thanks, Brent.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for everything.
Mr. Hanson?
We had a good meeting last month, planning board. The primary topic of discussion, which we will talk about again later, was the implementation of the comprehensive plan. Of course, the council had given some direction for the planning board to begin reviewing the future land use map and the zoning map for areas of potential inconsistency. We also threw into that some potential areas of inconsistency that came about as a result of recent amendments to the zoning ordinance in terms of where certain uses permitted, so killing two birds with one stone, essentially, through that. The planning board did make some recommendations, and we'll talk to bring to you to keep you aware of the process that they're going through, and so we'll talk about that later when it comes up under the compromise.
Do you know when it was reviewed last?
When what was reviewed?
The comprehensive one, of
The zoning map?
future land use plan map.
Well, it was redone as part of the comprehensive plan. Prior to that, it had been reviewed, I think, in 2015, something like that. I don't think any zoning map changes were necessarily made in direct response to that. And I think this would be the first time maybe that the village would be using its newly adopted plan to realign the zoning map. We also had a discussion about temporary signs, particularly as they relate to temporary signs owned and erected by the village, and we're going to bring some language to the planning board for their consideration to amend that in response to our discussion last month. That's Sherry, do you have anything to add to that?
Any questions for Vaughn? Just remember that the comprehensive plan stuff will be talked about a little bit later.
So do you feel like that you see a plan to keep the planning board very active over the next 3 to 6 months?
We could keep them busy
Keep them busy, yeah, because there's been a lot
for
of
years.
It's a very long time.
Yeah, there's a lot to do. I actually have an engineer breathing down my neck about something that he wants us to look at as well, that we talked about as part of the comprehensive plan, and I just haven't been moving fast enough for his his liking. That might be important to getting around about at Newtown. So I might have to hurry up on that one.
All right. So we do need to accept the resignation of Vince Guerin. Is that a council motion? Mm-hmm. So we need a motion to accept.
So motion.
Second. Any further discussion? He just said he was busy with work. He wasn't mad at us. He understood. So, all in favor?
He wasn't doing it for the money.
No. Really? Okay. That brings us to the finance officer's report. Cheryl,
Do we have since he resigned, we're getting a replacement for the,
so there'll be an opening.
is it published? Or we want to talk, do we have?
It's on the website. Okay. So the finance, I don't have anything much for ARP for a change. But, let's see, during the month of September, we actually got in the last quarterly revenues that applied to the prior fiscal year. I don't think there's anything outstanding. We're starting to get in property tax, which is good. There should be a little bit of, for National Night Out, I paid for, what was that, $32.95? Oh, that was for the plaque for Brandon. And I think there's one other bill that should be coming in. I'm not sure if there's any more bills. I guess there's nothing outstanding.
Any questions for Sharon? Sharon, do you have anything else at this time?
I don't think so.
All right, that brings us to our Parks and Rec report. Is that your orange shirt for Halloween?
Well, I tried to blend a couple of bad styles, but anyway. Yeah, I didn't wear my Buzz Lightyear outfit, so.
Will we see it?
Mm-hmm.
Will we see it at the Fall Bash?
We may, because our alternate, I should say, primary parade leader had to bow out, so. Big day.
Are you going to be on your Segway?
Probably not. Much as I like it. It's slightly, I mean, it introduces a little bit of risk, so also you got anybody around, kids, you don't know if they're going to.
It's not a big day, but if you ever fell on anybody,
He's getting a little unsteady, so yeah, his knees are shot.
he had knee surgery.
Oh, he did, okay.
That's good.
Well, having had one, I understand. All right, let's keep you guys going. So update on the rescheduled movie night. Of course, due to the Hurricane Ian, we originally moved it back to October 21st, but now it's moved back to December 2nd. Okay, it's going to be a little cool, but the Jersey Mice is still interested, still would like to be engaged. It's not going to be a problem getting a COI from them, and all the risk as far as what they sell is on them, so I don't see a particular issue with that.
Any chance of a bonfire that night?
Not here. Not here.
No.
No?
Unless you want to bring in like a little patio thing, throw a few balls on it.
Brad, what happens is October 21st, is there a conflict?
Union County had a conflict. Not with the date per se, but with something that was going on for one of the
The staff member.
staff.
Is December 2nd what Park and Rec approved?
I'm trying to think of when that happened. I know I sent out an update, I don't think so. We'll do that at this meeting, but I don't see a particular issue with it.
Might be a little cold. It might be a little
I
cold.
understand, but it's in Union County's budget already to do these things. So if we push it into, we could probably push it into early next year because I think they still do the same July to June. But we'll have to keep an eye on the weather and see what's going on. If we get canceled again, that's the answer. But then we get it.
You have a general idea of what temperature you want. I mean, we had to cancel the first one because of the rain from Hurricane Ian, but based on it being just too cold. Maybe it may not be raining, but it's going to be too cold.
I understand. The county's been very good about communicating with us, both in advance of Hurricane Ian, and I don't see why that would not be the same as we get closer. I don't think they would have an objection if we decided, 30 degrees, 40 degrees, no, 50 degrees, it's on the edge, 60 degrees, okay. We could have a 90-degree day, you never know.
I've got an app that goes like jumps ahead and gives averages, and according to this, December 2nd, it says it's going to be like around 48, 52.
Mm-hmm.
During the day or in the dark?
No, it's 6 p.m. 52, 10 p.m. 45. So that's not
horrible.
That's good football, right? We could go to a football game in that. Yeah. Well, people are out looking at lights and ice skating and everything else that's full of chilling stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Second item was considering approval of the co-sponsored Meet Your Neighbor event on November 19th from 1 to 5. Items to be funded, as I said, would be the deputies from us and the Porta Johns. Everything else is really going to be on the coordinator. I combined, and I know it's two parts, but I kind of combined the craft vendor discussion with this, because that's also a key point. Because at that thing, they were going to have the chili cook-off, they were going to have the cornhole tournament, and then they were going to have the crafts, 15 up to 15 craft vendors. So the in discussions with Cheryl, and we are I am working with Amy Crawford to get a COI from, she is actually working with the Pat's Place to get a COI from them. It's our understanding that they have it, that they should have one as a nonprofit. So that's certainly one of the ways, because they'll be the sponsor of the event. That also allows them to get the Union County Health approval to do the chili cook-off.
Okay, so Pat's Place is the official sponsor, or
Yes.
co-sponsor with Village of Wesley Chapel.
Correct.
And
Well, once I have the COI, police and all that.
that's our we a co-sponsor, or they're the sponsor? Yeah.
They're really the sponsor. We're contributing, so, because we're putting money towards it, I call it co-sponsor. If you want me to use a different word, that's fine, but because we're covering the deputies and the Porta Johns to a certain degree.
Well, I think if there's any signage that says sponsored by Pat's Place, that they're contributing more than we're contributing, is one thing, but if we're actually contributing more than they are, then perhaps there should be a little call-out, but that's for y'all to figure out.
Yeah, I think they will be contributing, because the idea was for them to each of the chili cook-off, any proceeds from that will go to Pat's Place. I think they have an application type fee for it. The cornhole tournament, the funds from that are going to go for Pat's Place. And for the craft vendors, whatever they charge them for a booth will go for the craft vendors, for the Pat's Place.
I have a question about, I understand that this lady approached Parks and Rec about doing an event. Does Parks and Rec have a policy, or what are your guidelines when somebody approaches you and wants to do something? At what point would it be somebody you don't want to partner with? Or say somebody comes up and wants to do an event, but we don't really want to do it, but they say that you pay for their bathrooms and whatever else.
If we don't want to, we don't have any written policy, no. With the village, since we are the owner of the park, I would think have the right to say what goes on at the park. I don't think if we need a policy, I'm sure we can come up with one, but we don't have
I don't
one.
need a policy, but just some sort of.
What are the criteria that you
Guidelines
would
or
decide?
something?
What are your criteria that you would accept a partnership with? Do they have to be a 501c3, or, can Joe Smo come out
We
and
had a
have a
church
birthday
group.
party?
We had a church group a few years ago that did one of their annual festivals at the park. This goes back several years.
But we didn't co-sponsor that, right? They just rented
No, but
it.
Southbrook at Easter is another example of where
Yeah.
somebody, we partner with them. Or they really run the event. We just provide a little bit extra. We're not even providing banners for this. She's like a social media whiz, so I'm trying to recruit her, but that's another story. So she'll get the word out. she's not worried about banners or anything else, so we don't throw across the four banners on a particular piece of property over a calendar year. So we're not going to have to worry about that. There'll be no limit banners for that.
But once we do it with somebody else, other people are going to come knocking. So I think it would be good to have some sort of guidelines for who are we going to partner with where we're agreeing to help pay for stuff? And when is it just a strictly park rental?
Right. And I think the other thing that I found confusing about this one was her coming in, Ms. Crawford coming in and saying, we want to do this event, as opposed to it being Pat's Place comes in and says, we would like to do an event at the park. I think that really confused a lot of things. So to actually have the entity that is truly going to be the sponsor, co-sponsor, partner, or renter, whatever it works out to be, to truly be the name we speak of and recognize everything else. Because it did feel like that maybe created a little bit of churn early on of like, she's doing this, maybe she do that, maybe she do that. And I just feel like that some of this criteria and some other stuff can help streamline and improve the Parks and Rec committee.
And again, it was a rule we found out about with the chili cook-off. The county health department, there's only an exemption from their rules if you are a nonprofit. And there's an application to go through that. You can only do, I think it's one a month type of thing. But, again.
So she's not, because when George was responding back about some of the insurance stuff that we're getting, she's not renting the park. This is an event that we are co-sponsoring. So do we have any sort of like MOU or something between us and them? Like if they back out, or just an agreement on paper? We're doing this and you're doing this?
What's an MOU?
No, we don't.
Of understanding or agreement?
No, we don't. I mean, we don't do that with Southbrook either, other than the discussion between the groups.
But Southbrook is like our trusted neighborhood. Like
Right.
we work with
There's a
them for a
history
year.
now.
No, I understand.
Somebody new that we don't know a lot about. Like,
Yeah. How do we not get buck out to dry?
I'm just saying, like, I think it'll happen again. I think somebody else is going to come, and I think we need to have our ducks in a row of either what are our criteria? Are they renting the park and having their own event, or is this something that we're interested in co-sponsoring? And once we do decide that, do we need to have an agreement? Just so we understand you're doing this and I'm doing this, so afterwards, there's no
Yeah,
ordering ball dropped.
No, that's fair. I mean, but they're doing all the coordination, so it's falling on, Amy and Pat's place. But I do understand that you don't want the village to end up looking like the.
And it might not be a standard form as much as it is partner Pat's Place will be responsible for and the village, and then depending on who that partner is, those things could shift and change. Like Easter versus, say, we partner with somebody else for the fall, that should look slightly different. I just feel like that this was an interesting opportunity to come along, very engaging for the community type of event, and I don't think we want to kind of jump in at this point and get stuck into something where we're like, oh, that really want to do that, get a lot of bad PR for something that was like could have been avoided. So the more proactive we are, more formal we are in these engagements, I think it'll just be for that event for everybody.
I think Dogwood Park is getting enough attention these days that it will bring other people who want to do things. I do.
That's fine. We'll talk to them, but we'll also put together the sort of the criteria that you're talking about. That's fine.
Like if yes, or co-sponsoring, no, they're right.
And I would think some of the criteria would be village residents, nonprofit within the village, maybe a priority over, say, a national charity, perhaps, as an example, right? Of just like thinking about how we want to
Profit-making
entities, right? Like you want to kind of keep we're generating funds and hopefully generating funds, people just like home.
Okay.
That seems a great.
That's fair.
Those rules might be you guys easy out if somebody unsavory comes along, for example, and you could say, this is our policy and you can't, this doesn't fit. I mean, it might be easier for you guys if you did have something all spelled out and stuff, I mean, I'm just.
I do. I still fall back to the village owns the park, the village has the right to say what can be done. I mean,
Well, since it's being advertised as Meet Your Neighbor event, which I think is really cool, the perception I think that the village is participating is only a good thing. I think we are co-sponsoring. I think the village's name up there saying, hey, we're encouraging, we're sponsoring an event that we can meet your neighbor. I mean, to me that would be a good perception for the village anyway.
This council is known to not be fair, so.
I have never said that, so.
I'm making a joke about other things, but people, I think it's better to protect ourselves up front.
Sure. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever, it's fine.
Even
We can
though
put
it's
together
our
a
property, somebody will, it's kind of like the whole sign thing. It's our property, but we don't have rules about what signs go on, and everybody's going to want to put their sign there.
Well, but there's always the potential for you getting, I'm going to go worst case a little bit. So some, I don't know what I want to bring up. That's not going to offend somebody, but the Ku Klux Klan wants to hold something there, I mean.
That's dark case, worst case.
Well, I said worst case, we have to kind of have the right to be able to say, I don't think so because of certain things you promote, certain things, not that we're agreeing and disagreeing with why you exist,
Right.
but, there's just a natural's the wrong word, but there's just a potential increase in violence and things around those type of events. So if we think that's going to occur, then I would be the first one to say, but they have a set of rules that how you can write them carefully to address that.
And it might be about the fact that things are trying to promote.
Mm-hmm.
As part of your MOU or whatever your agreement with them, can you please put in it that they will provide us the county
Yes.
environmental health permit a week or two before the event, and also if they plan to put up any temporary signs, that they provide us temporary sign permits also.
Right, but I don't believe they plan to put up signs.
That'd be great.
And let's put it in the MOU anyway.
But just the health department, because
Yes.
if they're the sponsor, then we shouldn't be getting the permit.
No, we're not.
Okay.
We're not. This is strictly hands off by our team. That was part of their approval process by the Park and Rec team, is that, okay, we will sponsor as far as providing deputies and the John, but the rest of the organization is up to you, including volunteers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We are not going to run the event.
Are you going to give them guidelines as to what are low-risk vendors? As to what low-risk vendors would be?
Well, that's the discussion coming up, I think. But that's a fair
Jumping
comment,
ahead.
and I agree. That should go into, I honestly think that should go into the vendor application itself, assuming we put in there the indemnification language.
Well, if we're not doing the vendors, then it's their application. Is it not?
It's kind of a catch-22 in that one. I had this discussion with Amy. I think she would have been fine to go do it on her own, but then that kind of leaves us.
Well, based on, so George sent an email, and he's talking about how insurance is complicated. He says, are events like the Fall Festival and others being branded as village events, or the events run by or sponsored by Friends of Parks and Rec or other entities? If it's the latter, it falls into the category of renting the park for the event, and the items discussed in the insurance bulletin apply. If it's the former, other bulletins are applicable. But so we're co-sponsoring. We're on the hook for these people too. So if we're co-sponsoring this event, then we need to decide who has to have a COI, naming the village as additional insured. So he says, I'm not an expert on insurance coverages and insurance disputes, but the general recommendation makes sense to me for a COI because it avoids the issue of gaps in coverage. However, as we all know, there are some vendors that are less risky than others. For example, someone selling trinkets versus someone selling food products. Assessing that risk and determining which categories of vendors should provide COIs will be up to council. So, but I mean, and y'all saw those bulletins from the insurance company very clearly separate who is, not who needs to have a COI. So we just need to have on our vendor application who needs to have a COI.
Well, and that's where we get into, okay, let's back up a little bit. So I've done research looking at the state's site on starting a business. Okay, one of the things that's spelled out very clearly is not every business needs a business license. It doesn't work that way. They have a list of some, it's over 1,000, I don't remember the exact number, it might be 1,200, I don't remember, but of types of businesses that are required to get a business license. And if you're not on that list, typically you don't. The other thing that's there is, do you need liability insurance if you have a business? Well, it says on the state site, contact your insurance carrier to determine if you need liability insurance. So I don't know that it's within our purview as a town or a village to go, hey, do you have a business license when we don't know, I don't understand, I'll say it this way. I don't understand which businesses actually do, even though that list is there. What a nuance of each line item pertains to something else.
Even if somebody's selling airboats in the park, they probably don't need a COI, my understanding, right? But if they're selling
Food.
cookies,
That's
they
food.
need a COI. So to me, it's not about whether they have a business license or not. It's whether it's, because those are on that list.
But liability insurance goes with having a business license, in my opinion. I mean, why would you go get liability insurance if you didn't?
But if you're selling food, wouldn't you probably have to have a business license?
As I said, I don't have the list of 1,000 businesses memorized, but it may.
Yeah, but I mean, ultimately, we don't answer to the state, we answer to our insurance company.
Agreed.
So, I mean,
That's why I want the indemnification language in there that other towns are using, and has been successful. Waxhaw just had a huge, maybe 10,000 people there, and a bunch of that. Now, I agree, we need to make sure that low risk, and absolutely, if somebody wants to come and sell knives, I would be the one to say, maybe not, because somebody could pick one up, innocently or not innocently, and create a problem. Can we, and that's where George really, I think legally, can we say, low risk as determined by the village, which would exclude, we could do the list of stuff that the league sent over, but it's like landing airplanes, and that's not going to happen at the park. We could always reference that. Well, we can't, because it's not a state statute, so how you can reference that? We can attach it, we can include it as part of the application, but that doesn't cover everything.
well, maybe the administration could say, these categories are considered low risk by the village, and we're asking you to sign that you do not hold us liable for anything,
Right.
whatever that is.
An indemnification.
But these are our high risk, and you are required to have a COI.
Absolutely.
And then you can always have a little comment in there, and at the village's discretion, based on the request, a COI may be required. Something that just kind of covers everything.
I think we should know which vendors, what vendors are coming. Absolutely. I'm not disagreeing with that whatsoever. So I think based on that, we should be able to make that kind of, determination and run it past George or whoever. If it's a council decision, run it past the council, and you guys would come back and say, this one's questionable.
So you're saying the applications would come to us?
I
Or
think-
we would have a list ahead of time, if we could decide on the list right now?
We don't have much time.
Yeah, because that was about what, November?
19th.
The other thing that's confusing to me is you said that Pat's Place would be the sponsor, but then are we going to collect fees from people and do the form from people to be a vendor? That makes it sound like we're running the event.
No, Amy was going to do that. As I said, we're probably going to need to fill out, and this is me making a call based on the emails floating around that you forwarded from George and everything else, saying, we're going to need that form. Because if we're putting money into the event, we are a co-sponsor, whether we want to call it, co or a sponsor, put it that way.
Yeah.
So we have to, in my opinion, I'm not an attorney, that we have to protect ourselves as well. I had no objection to that. That's why I already said that to her. I said I would go in front of council tonight, we would have a discussion, but I would expect that, because she would like to see a wide audience as possible, which I understand, and by having 3 different things going on, she thought that would improve. So it's possible, if we can't come to an agreement on craft vendors, that we push it off. I don't know.
Well, can't she just use our form and do all the work and just give us copies of it?
Yes, I think so. Why not?
And then we can just, and if we object to somebody, we'll be like, no.
But then, like at the top, would it say Village of Wesley Chapel Festival or whatever it is?
Say Dogwood Park Craft Fair Vendors. And not say.
You don't want to say Pat's Place event vendors?
I would say in conjunction with Pat's Place. That's what I would think again.
Well, it could go for every event. If you change craft fair vendors, organized by Pat's Place, final approval, Village of Wesley Chapel.
I don't have a problem with that. As I say, that's kind of what I was thinking. I do think we need that extra layer of protection.
And if they're making something like hair bows, wreaths.
Because when I hear crafts, I'm thinking about things like that, especially the time.
Art projects, picture
little
paintings.
ornaments and
Yeah.
tchotchkes and stuff.
We know, for instance, if they're going to do something with, I don't know, like something weird, like glass blowing. Well, you need a hot torch for that. Okay, no, COI.
Yes.
Period.
Yes.
And maybe we'd allow it, but COI, definitely.
Wood carving.
Hmm?
Wood carving, no wood carving.
Right, no wood carving with a chainsaw. No. Or anything else.
Ice sculptures.
That's a chainsaw or anything. No.
So anything with tools and weapons that could hurt somebody and food would need a COI, I think.
Okay.
Is that good, council?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Pushes me out, doesn't it? I was going to do chainsaw carving.
you do it across the street.
You do it in the church parking lot. Associated with us.
Yeah, we prefer if they just brought their wares, whatever they are, and sold them, but it also depends, like I said, if it's knives. I like knives. I have a small knife collection, but no. Not for this. No, it's good. Absolutely.
So Sharon, do you need a formal motion for that, or can it just kind of be no tools? We need a motion saying if it's...
Sounds good to me. It never hurts to have a motion.
Careful with the tools, because if you're sitting there with a pair of pliers making earrings, I don't think that's
Blow
dangerous.
torches or knives or saws.
Or we had the same thing, we have a fishing pier, but if you bring a tackle box and it's got a fillet knife in it,
So
you're in
no
violation. But that's,
power, cutting, heating, burning tools? The power tools?
Well, that's not power.
Well, who's approving the applications for the vendors?
well, that's gonna be determined here, I think, but I said we would work in conjunction with her on
Okay, I mean,
that. She would get them, we would have the,
stupid question, I may be,
That's fair.
a stupid question. Can we just not, rather than make a motion and trying to list out each modified risk, that we just say, hey, we allow either the council or Parks and Rec or whomever determine whether this is a high risk and acceptable? or not?
I mean, that's fine with me, but I don't want I think it needs to be council or staff. Doesn't need to be Parks and Rec, because they aren't liable if something goes wrong here. So, I mean, I'm happy to work with Cheryl and go through them after, or somebody else can.
Sounds good to
After
me.
they, Pat's Place can gather them, we can clean up that form, right? Pat's Place can gather them, accept the money or whatever, and then Cheryl and I can go through and approve them based on the consensus of, we don't want something that can hurt someone.
Okay.
And to Cheryl's earlier point, then just request those be in like 2 weeks ahead of time or some period of time to.
Minimum, absolutely. That actually brings me to another point, but I'll let you guys make your motion first and I'll get to that.
Well, David doesn't want to jump to
I think we're putting way too much thought and way too much thought into this. I think we just use common sense and say yes or no, as opposed to coming with.
I agree with David.
That's fine. So the other point I was going to make, which doesn't really have anything to do with this, but because the time frame is getting condensed to get this together, it is possible that she may, when talking to the different people that were going to participate in the event, that she needs to be part of to make the event whole, we may push this off to the spring. So, just so you're aware.
Okay. And I'll get with Cheryl about cleaning up that form. Okay, Cheryl?
Mm-hmm. Fine.
You guys are, which
I'll
one?
get Cheryl and send it to you. Let's see what you say.
And we had a couple of examples. I think Amy had gotten, was kind of Amy Mumford was kind enough to get from local towns what they're using. So I think if we can mirror that, pretty much very similar. So, okay, thank you.
Mike's.
Yes. Okay, large condenser mics. One of the things that happened as a result of the end of summer jam, we had the high school band there raising funds for their Hawaii trip and things. So, they expressed an interest in being more involved with events when they can. I think it's a wonderful idea, and we started talking to them and started saying, okay, what about reaching out to elementary schools and those folks to have them come do, 1 or 2 numbers or something like that. Like at Coco and Carol's, we're leaning towards having schools come. We've already got commitment from one. I expect to get more. Chad is actually working on that from the committee. So these condenser mics, the mics we have now, you have to be up close and personal to. If you've got a group of singers, they don't work. So condenser mics take that sound from a group and again amplify. So go ahead. I see.
Did Parks and Rec approve them?
Yes.
Are the lights on individual stands?
There's 2 ways you can go. The way I wrote it up was without the stands, because the stands double the cost. But yeah, it can be put on individual stands, or you can suspend them from the infrastructure of the amphitheater. Now, if you get the stands, it gives you more flexibility to do it in other places other than the amphitheater. But again, it doubles the cost.
And so the suspension, is that something they have to be put up and taken down for each of them, or are they?
I believe they would have to be taken up and down. I'm not an expert on them, but I would not want
We would
anything.
have to arrange potentially a man lift or something to.
The ladder.
I mean, how you're going. Because the next question was, if you have adults singing versus 8-year-olds singing, might be different. To your point about getting schools involved.
You could lower them or raise them. Mm-hmm.
So there's no money on the Parks and Rec equipment budget at this time.
Correct. It says unbudgeted, I believe. I think it's checked. That.
Yeah, it says required budget. I just want to make sure people nothing.
I am not coming here and making any other.
the budget line item. Am I missing it?
It would be Park and Rec capital outlay, and it was not budgeted.
It was not budgeted for this year. We were a little surprised by the interest so quickly from that one event.
See, I think that's what's gonna happen with your next event too. I think that's what's gonna happen with your next event, it's gonna generate interest.
We'll see. I don't know if that one will generate as much, but I mean, of course, the entire committee likes the idea of having the schools and the kids involved. It gets ownership of the park, it gets, involvement. So,
Also,
I don't know what
Could
council's
you use some
thoughts.
of the event budget for it, since it's to help support events?
because you're not spending your $4,000 per event, right? You're coming in under budget.
I will get to that, I was going to bring up next, but yes.
So if we took $1,200 from the event budget, that should cover the mics. And then we just need to make sure it's just $1,200, so it doesn't end up being $1,500, and some of the things we didn't foresee.
Are they going to be just at the amphitheater thing, or can they be moved anywhere?
If you get the stands, which again doubles the cost, then they can be moved anywhere.
Oh, okay. But you're thinking of
It's got to be
putting them up at
connected
the...
to our equipment, of course, in order to work. I mean, I'm not making any other, it's not a separate sound system, it's a mic
Right.
to pick up the voices better.
So they'd be attached to the amphitheater in that dome thing? I don't know.
For an event, we would attach it, we would take it down. I would not leave anything out.
Mm.
That's my recommendation.
David, what are your thoughts?
I'm glad, I think I'm clear now, and the Parks and Rec are asking for the mics at this point, not the mics and the stands.
But we only did that because we wanted to try and look at the budget impact. But, I also added the flexibility by having the stands. I mean, because you can do it in the parking lot, you can do it in that one.
And we can do them suspended, we buy them mics, do them suspended for an event, and learn from it, and then decide, mics would really be much easier than hanging them or whatever else, and then that would be a separate request sometime in the future.
Mm-hmm. Fair comment.
How many mics do we own at this point? I feel like every year it's more mics.
I have no idea what was part of that sound system right now.
Do we have an inventory, speaking of?
Yeah,
We do. Mhm.
we do.
Because then that becomes, we have an inventory, and it's then a file, at what point do these things need to start being replaced? From a maintenance perspective, we're gonna make sure in the future that we're budgeting for those type of things as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we probably need to see realistically how often it's used before.
Well, as a former choir member, and
Really?
I know how without proper mics, it just, you're lost.
It's disappointing.
It is, and especially if you've got one mic, you hear one person, you don't hear anybody else. So, especially if you want to have youth groups, and I've been to events where we have students singing, and unless you're right up there on them, you can't really hear them that well. So I think the mics would be a good idea. I think it's a good investment, and like Laura was saying, we can always wait and get the stands and an additional purchase, or you guys could put it in a future budget. But I think the mics are a good idea.
I do think if this is approved, I think there does need to be a strong push to include choral groups.
Oh, absolutely. And we've already kind of started doing that with Cocoa Carols. Once we had the interest, now, the group that was there won't be able to perform on December 10th because they'll just be getting back from Hawaii, or maybe not even. But
I know that
And they want to go with their bands, are
My kids used to do the Christmas burger at Siler, and Weddington once a year at their Christmas tree lighting has several choral groups. So there's a lot of options out there.
they? There is.
I think they're gonna come up with somebody. I mean, if they're out beating the bushes trying to find interest, there will be one or two groups of children, I suspect,
Mhm.
you know, entertaining us.
It's exciting.
I have one question. All the equipment we have is in these big cases. Would this fit in the existing cases, or do we need to buy a new case?
They're not huge. They
Okay.
fit in the existing
There's room.
cases.
Okay.
If you had stands, then that's another,
Then they wouldn't fit. Okay.
that'd be long, whatever.
And this would be something that would go into those duties of that sound technician we pay? Or is this something the volunteers are going to be adding to their plate?
It's not a big deal.
It's
So
nice.
we already have microphones, it's just you hook up this microphone, you hook up this microphone.
And John's familiar with it as well, so I mean, definitely from
Well, if anything needs to be suspended, I do not think volunteers should necessarily be the ones suspending that person. It should be John. Activity.
Because he's
Just
covered
in
in
case.
hazard insurance.
Exactly.
Okay.
He's got liability.
Right.
Is there specific stands to go with these microphones that we're looking at?
I don't have that information with me, to be honest, so I won't try and talk to it. But yes, I believe there are stands that are configured for that. More like boom stands, so that they can, you don't have the stand right in front of the choral group, but you have the mic boomed out to where it can pick up the sound.
These aren't regular mics, these are condenser mics, so they pick up, they amplify the sound and pick it up from
Right.
voice, so I figure they probably do need specific, different kind of stands.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so is there a motion on it?
I'll make a motion that we approve getting the mics.
From what budget? Yeah.
I don't know.
Events?
From events, yeah, if there's event money left
Service
there.
budget.
And how much are you saying?
$1,200, is that?
$1,200?
Yeah, $1,200.
Or less? Or less?
Or less, yeah, but yeah.
I gave you the price of $300 to $400. We can get them cheaper.
But, yeah,
From the events budget?
Cheaper.
right, from the
Okay.
events budget if feasible.
Say not to exceed.
Not to exceed $1,200.
Coming from the Parks and Rec event services.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Thank
And-
you, council.
Do you guys want to see a quotes on that, or can they just pick a vendor and go by? Okay.
Given the price of $400 roughly per, I don't think.
Well, it's
They
over
know it's coming out of
1,200.
their events budget, so I trust they're going to be frugal.
They will know that. They didn't know it was coming out of there, but that's, which brings me to my next item, which actually is good. So our budget for our fall bash, because, well, I mean, it's going to sound low, and it's kind of that way on purpose, is right now $2,250. Well under the 4,000. We're going to add program printing to it, but I think that's going to be a small number. Cheryl's working with us to get some orange paper, and we'll print it in black.
Probably
ink.
$50. Yeah.
Under $50, let's say. So $2,300. The banners aren't costing us anything this time because of the problems we had with them last time. Mr. Print gave us a credit refund on the whole thing.
I got a credit.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, for the whole amount. Mhm.
So we went with their recommendation this time, which was to only get a single-sided, because somehow the single-sided is heavier duty than the dual-sided, which I don't know why they wouldn't use the same thing, but we'll go with their recommendation this way. We may end up with another credit.
As long as it's free.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So,
In your budget, did you include the cost of the T-shirts?
yes, I did.
Okay.
I can leave this with you. When I
Okay.
Sorry.
Mhm.
I only brought it all together today. We did get the T-shirts redone. That was $340. If you want me to go line by line, I'm happy to do that. But I know you guys said no. But we did get the additional T-shirts done by the place in Monroe, and I picked them up Friday actually. So we're back to basically full contingent, and we'll go from there. But we'll include that in any budget where we need to replenish our supply from really the last of it. So it'll kind of be one behind, but it doesn't matter. It's the same budget item. Okay. The chin-up bar, whatever they call that thing. It's been completed. Okay, it is smaller than we originally expected, which is, again, fine. The functionality is there. If you want to pass both those down, Mike, if you don't mind. So I didn't make multiple copies. And that happened as a result of they got some pipes donated from a plumber. And the plumber welded them and just ended up making it smaller. So we're the plumber's assistant, actually, not the owner of the company himself. But regardless, the Scout is happy with it.
That's about half the size of what we originally talked about.
I don't know half, but it's small. That's why I said it was smaller. But it actually, to be quite honest, where it's located is probably nicer being this size because it's less intrusive. You can still take your nature walk around the thing there. And I should have moved the trash bin, sorry.
Is it
This
stoutly
was the
built?
Boy Scout product.
It is stoutly built. I checked it out, and I'm pretty stout.
What did you do, right?
I can never do chin-ups, believe it or not. I can do a million other things.
Neither could I.
I can do push-ups, I can do, but chin-ups, no.
As long as I can hang upside down with my knees, I'm
Absolutely.
I would like to take photos while we were.
I want to see y'all get into that position, hang by your knees.
Here we come with the fallback.
I
So
can
I'm
do
going
that.
to bring my camera.
If that's a dare, I can do that. Talked about that. I think I did everything.
Well, we talked about Scout projects, just to update council, the fencing around where the Girl Scouts can do the community garden is complete.
What did you end up using?
All donated materials.
We used, the fencing that we had left over from when we took off the tennis courts
And I donated all the
8 years ago.
posts.
We needed a few more posts and a few more brackets, whatever they're
I
called.
think it's about $20 or something.
So you said it's completed, is that
It's
right?
complete.
Thank you.
Girl Scout is still getting
Right.
approval from her Girl Scout board review to build the actual raised beds.
Right, so it's fenced in, the area's fenced in, and we're just waiting for her to get her approvals, as Mike just mentioned.
Okay, any further questions for Brad?
I would add that the park's looking great. I mean, for this time of the year, it's really looking good.
I just, one quick aside, had the conversation on I just forgot his name. The teenager that's working with John, okay. Met him today, wonderful. I mean, he's just,
Like 3 days a week for about
Just
3 hours
keeps
a
going.
day, and he just does whatever John has to
I
do.
mean, yeah.
When I talked to John, that sounded, when I asked John about it, it sounded great.
Yeah, and I met John today too as well.
Yeah, just like-
He was down there, so.
They got a great little thing going.
His mom's dropping him off, and his mom's picking him up after about 3 hours of work, and he's always got some list of things to do from John. Never complains.
Shirts for him. I'd given him a large, he needs an extra large, so.
Good kid.
Just so everyone knows, spot cameras will hopefully be installed soon,
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
October?
Yeah, hopefully they're coming Hopefully they're coming soon.
On the 12th.
Will the camera system come with a little sign that says property under video surveillance or?
No, he said not to do that. We are not advertising it.
They
We are not
recommended
advertising
against it.
Really?
No, so you don't need to be telling people either. It's supposed to be,
So they can catch them.
Or incognito.
Yeah.
we're not supposed to put signs that say Amherst Avenue.
Don't let them get arrested, and don't ever get around, stay the heck away from Wesley John.
I'm really surprised. I thought the first thing you do is put a little sign.
Yep, John, that was one of the first things John asked.
Mm-hmm.
I will take the advice of the professional, if that's what the professional is saying.
And then this week or next month? This Wednesday or next Wednesday?
It's just, I don't know, because they're doing some, like, they called 811, but it's gone, so it'll be sometime this week or next. That's
And how many cameras? Two?
Two. Both located actually fairly close to one another. One to catch them coming in, and the other to catch them going out. If you know somebody's been only there 3-5 minutes, something like that.
Yeah. The date's changed a couple times, but I'm hopeful that it'll be this week or next.
Good.
Great.
Anything else? All right, thank you, Brad.
Thanks, Council. Appreciate it.
All right, that brings us to the public hearing on amendments to permitting requirements.
Thank you.
If something's missing, let me know.
So we'll open the public hearing for amendments to permitting requirements of the zoning ordinance 2022-17. Would anyone like to speak? Everyone's old. Come on, approach the podium. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. And now, Ron?
I've probably talked to you about this a few times, but and you've had this for maybe a couple months now in terms of the text of the ordinance changes, but the planning board's been reviewing potential changes to the permitting procedures and standards for quite some time, since late winter, early spring of this year. We kind of moved off towards the changes to special use permits for a while and put this on the side and picked it back up late summer and finished it out. We had pretty much developed the outline of what we were looking to do back during the spring, and so it was just a matter of translating that into ordinance language. One of the issues that Amy and Cheryl have been running into with the way that it's currently written is that it purports to be exhaustive of all the circumstances that might arise, but it's not, and it kind of conflicts with itself in terms of when you have to get certain permits for certain things and when you have to do it and when you don't. And there were ways to interpret it where doing very minor acts required somebody to spend potentially thousands of dollars on surveys multiple times over the course of a fairly benign project. So we wanted to preserve the portions of the current permitting standards that are really good. I think it's probably served the village pretty well, at least in getting documentation to the extent it can, about important things like somebody building a new house, right? Somebody building a new commercial building, things of that nature. What we're looking at here, though, is if there's certain small accessory structures, certain minor types of additions to a house sitting in the middle of a 20-acre parcel, things where precision doesn't really matter as much, that we're not requiring people to hire a surveyor to come out and survey a 10-acre property to show that their 400 square foot addition to their house is 600 feet away from a property line. So it doesn't make a lot of economic sense to do that, and just delays things. Other things that we wanted to, just reading back through it, this section of the ordinance purports to be the arbiter of when a zoning permit is required. There's nothing in there about getting a zoning permit if you're changing a business. Right? So we added something in there for that. changed some of the language in the final step there, that this certificate of compliance that had been required would kind of combine some things so that the final actions of verifying compliance with the initial permits all in one place instead of being between two sections. So it's basically broken up between the initial, this is you get a permit to do something, and then this is how you follow through, and these are the circumstances in which we're going to require that you bring something to us to verify that you're doing what you're supposed to do. And so hopefully it is much more clear now as to the circumstances when you do have to come back to do things like a foundation permit or to get a certificate of compliance at the final stages of the process, and when you do not. And I don't know, Cheryl, do you think this is more clear in terms of, you can be honest.
No, I mean, it gets complicated.
It's very complicated.
Yeah.
But
it might cut back on upset people having to pay for surveys multiple times.
I had an example several years ago that just jumped into my head, that this goes back to Bill Dustin days. Gentleman came in, was being forced to get a permit and spent a lot of money. He was removing his existing deck to build back, because it was rotted, and put back up the exact same deck, the exact same footprint, and he was being required to jump through a lot of hoops. And it was only like a 10-foot by 12-foot deck. It wasn't some giant, outrageous thing. A 10-foot square structure of a deck replaced the existing deck seemed...
So if you're not, if we change the ordinance to what it says here, it's very explicit. If you're adding on to a structure with no enclosed space, then you can just draw it out.
Okay. Not a big expense.
I did think of one thing that I haven't even mentioned to you. I literally just I always think of these things when I'm trying to get to sleep at night. We have people who come and say, a pool company or a shed company, and they try to get a permit for a certain location. Do we want to require that the property owner sign the application? Because there's many times where the owner never sees the application, and we may put on it, not to be used as another dwelling unit or something like that. It just, I sort of feel like the owner should be aware of every permit on his property, and currently they're not.
Yeah, and technically the ordinance does say that the owner or their agent has to be the person that, and we can require that somebody submit a letter authorizing the agency or certifying that somebody is an agent for the owner, if we feel that they might be misrepresenting.
Is that like in a different section?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this goes for anything, right? A subdivision plat or a variance or a special use permit.
Because, like Tough Shed, they want to sell a shed. They don't give a damn, for anything else. About if it's really near a line or whatever, they just want to make their sale. But the homeowner, is the one that's left with it when they go to... when they go to sell their house 2 years later and find out something's not in compliance. Just a thought.
Yeah, so we do require that the owner or their agent sign the application. And it's really up to you.
But the thing is now we don't know that they're really an agent. We just know that somebody's here and they want a permit on this lot.
If we want to get serious about it, you can require like a notarized letter to go along with something, which is just as easy then for the owner to sign it. Instead of going and get something notarized.
I just feel like it would be nice for the owner to see the permit.
I agree.
Yeah, when we had our screened in porch added to the house, and it's like a big one. The perk of one of the builders who bid for it said, "I do all the permits, I take care of it, you don't have to worry about it." And I'm like, yes, that's good. So I don't know that I'd want to see a bunch of permits and sign off on.
But do you know if they even got the permits?
Yeah, because he showed it to me after the fact. But he wanted to be all above board. But I'm just saying, as a homeowner, I didn't want to have to deal with all that.
Sure.
So I don't think it's a big burden just that you just need to sign it. They're going to do all the legwork, all the writing, all the negotiating, everything else. You're just signing it. Because once you come to convey your property, when you get ready to sell it or something, that may come up, and that person's long gone, and you at least have that, some of that record of what occurred.
We've gotten calls in the past where I need to close my house in 3 weeks, and now I find out that this is. I mean, we have had this more than once. So,
well, the builder will just make you sign it when you're signing the check for them. You know.
Yeah, some of there's a burden on the property owner as well to not let random people come build stuff on your property that you don't know about. I mean, it's the issue is more has to do with commercial property or rental properties where people just haul off and start doing stuff, which they do. When it comes to your own personal residence, it's rare for there to be some kind of construction occurring without your knowledge, and then we shouldn't be approving anything that's not.
David, you're doing a lot of renovations. You sign all your permits?
Like that, I haven't signed one.
It would be rare but building permits don't require the owner to sign. Just anything anything except building permits. But.
Well, our ordinance says, so what does have to be signed?
Anything under the zoning ordinance, anything that you're applying for. Yeah. By the owner or their agent, we can take whatever steps towards due diligence that we want to, and I don't think we get a lot of fake people. If it is a special use permit or a variance in particular, because that just changes permanently what can be done on the land and can subject you to additional things, then yeah, I mean you want to make sure that everybody is aware of what's being signed. That's like when Arbor Brook was coming in to do stuff, we made the church, even though they could probably not care any less about what Arbor Brook's doing up on their part, they had to sign the applications as well.
One example is a few years ago, we had a property on Cuthbertson Road, and they wanted to build something, and the builder wanted to build something larger than would be acceptable for an accessory structure, and so our planner at the time allowed it as a barn, and it turned out it was not a barn. It was a 2,000 square foot or home, and it ended up subdividing the property to make it legal. And so I'm saying that I'm not dreaming these things up, there are things that come up.
But the owner was aware of that.
No, she wasn't. I don't think she was aware that it was a barn.
Well, potentially not, yeah.
She knew what it was.
There's a typo on page 2.
I'm sorry?
Typo on page 2A. It just went down that way. There's one.
And what was the...
By A, with no space between the by A.
Oh, yeah.
That's slow. Let's see, the new slow. By and I realize, this is the ordinance and these are requirements and everything else. And I'm just sitting here thinking, like, as a property owner, and you're looking to do something, where do you get the guidance, the proper guidance, and of, hey, these are the things you've got to get from a building permit from the county, and these are the things. How do those things fit together to help a resident easily navigate that? There's nothing, is there?
Most of the residents do not know what our ordinance are, but they're relying usually on a subcontractor, a pool builder, somebody who's doing some improvements in their
yeah, there's a lot of people who do things without permits.
Absolutely.
Or any type.
Sure.
But it's just kind of this thinking through, like, what is out there, anything, so that people can't say, well, I didn't know that.
There's a several-page document that comes with the zoning permit.
Yeah, and I mean,
I'm thinking about.
Most people, well,
Bless you.
I'm just thinking about something on the
as long as you're
website,
not from,
you know, if you want to, blah, 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 you know, type of thing.
if you showed up here from east of the Mississippi, then it's likely that you've had to get even more permits than we would ever require for doing anything that you ever wanted to do. Now, if you're from unincorporated Texas or rural Missouri, you're probably going to do what you want to do. We can't. I mean, it's hard to stop that, but
And there's a big difference in owning 100 acres and a half an acre.
And right, we've tried to distinguish that further in here. It's not that you don't have to get permits to do things; it's that we require less scrutiny when you're surrounded by 10 acres of land and your house is in the middle of it. Yeah. Congratulations. If you're 5 feet off your property line, then yeah, we're going to need to make sure that, because we don't want to have to send more letters to people for them to ignore. Unless they're pinnacle people. So actually do something.
And that's most amazing that those are not first-time homeowners.
Yeah.
No, and people admit that they know what. There's a planner and a guy that said that he knew he had to get building permits for other stuff in Union County and should have. It's people that don't know what they're doing. They hire a contractor. Usually.
But even then, you hire a contractor, you think they're doing the right thing. But if you, as a homeowner, have no idea what the right thing is,
Oh, sure. I just moved before I did any work on my house. Just get a new one.
There's a lot of space where, a lot of instances where there should have been a space between two words. I'm going through it, and
It's, yeah,
That would just have to be at the top.
I will fix all those.
in the clean copy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just when it.
I cut and pasted from
Oh, you cut and pasted.
from my buddy here.
There you go.
So, council, is there a motion?
I make a motion for us to approve ordinance 2022-17 to amend the zoning ordinance regarding permitting.
Is there a second?
So, second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? That brings us to comprehensive plan.
Statement of consistency.
Yes, I'm sorry. It was at the bottom of the page about the statement of consistency. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have.
We already voted on it, so we need to add.
A new motion.
It's just a separate. You can adopt a separate motion. It's usually often as well. So the planning board, I failed to mention, recommended this to you unanimously, and they adopted a statement of consistency that I recommended to them. This is one of those circumstances where what you're voting on is an administrative provision, so our comprehensive plan doesn't really talk about how we should do zoning permitting as an administrative matter. And so the planning board statement was that due to the administrative nature of the amendment, it is neither consistent nor inconsistent with the adopted plan.
So I just make an admission, a motion to amend the prior vote to add that it was approved due to the administrative nature of the amendment. It is neither consistent nor inconsistent with the adopted plan.
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Still second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, unanimous. Comprehensive plan.
As I mentioned earlier, we started and finished reviewing, at least for the time being, the future land use map and the zoning map for areas of potential inconsistency. And as I also mentioned, we kind of threw in, added to the mix, really because it actually overlapped, areas where there was we had created certain non-conforming situations with regard to schools in particular, which, if you recall, we moved schools out of being a permitted use in every zoning district, basically, to being only permitted in the O&I district, which left both of our schools as legal nonconformities, and so Wesley Chapel Elementary and Newtown Elementary, if they needed to do something quickly to accommodate something that was occurring at the school, we could have to sit here and rezone, take 3 months to rezone the property just to make it conforming, which would not be much fun at all. So those were a couple of the recommendations we had. There are a couple of locations where there are disused commercial properties or vacant properties that are zoned for non-residential use. Southern Whimsy being one of those the planning board discussed. Have we reached that? They ignored us last time we sent them letters about cleaning up their property, so who knows?
Well, he came in very upset.
About?
That his property was going to be rezoned. He was supposed to reach out to you, so I just wondered if he did.
Who knew?
When?
Whoever Michael Kennery's friend is that owns Southern, his family owns Southern Whimsy. He was very
Oh,
upset.
he's a deputy, that guy. Yeah.
Yeah. And
So this is in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, Amy directed him to come on, and I just wondered if he had dinner.
No. Yeah. That got his attention.
Yeah, it did.
So he's upset that the residential property may be rezoned to commercial?
Well,
Commercial.
it's
Zone commercial.
It's zoned commercial now. It is not just the old gas station. There's also the house, and our land use plan does not indicate that as a location for commercial use. And it's probably not feasible to use that property for commercial purposes.
It's always been commercial.
It hasn't been anything for a few years.
Well, this
Well,
reminds
let
me,
me back up. It's been commercial longer than it's been nothing.
Yes, the portion with the gas station on it, but not the house.
But it may have started as commercial at a very different point in the history of Wesley Chapel.
well, this reminds me back, goes back probably almost 10 years when we were dealing with Francisco Espinosa's Nina's Market gas station.
Mm-hmm.
It had always been either a service station, a junkyard, some kind of an automotive type place, but when we originally adopted the land use map for Wesley Chapel, it was mistakenly marked as residential. So one of the things we had to do was think about that, and when we were doing the initial approval, and basically fix the error.
And this is just an example of something that might come up when it might not be the only person upset.
Might not be,
Just saying.
Yeah, you've got those 6 different properties that they're considering.
or groups of properties.
Groups of properties.
Because that's actually 2 properties at Southern Whimsy. It's 2 different parcels.
So there's no possibility to grandfather these things and say, oh, well, that was already done?
Oh, it will stay there as a derelict building until it burns down or falls down. I can guarantee, nothing's going back in there. It cost $500,000 to fix that place up.
Not to mention the buried gas tanks that are still in the property.
Not to mention the buried gas tank.
Well, and he said he's just holding on to it to sell.
Sure.
He has plans for it one day, but that building, once that building comes down, you have to build it to the.
It couldn't be rebuilt in
standards.
its current location. And then it drops off like that. Behind it.
Such a small spot.
Yeah,
Doesn't meet setbacks, parking requirements, all that kind of stuff.
All right.
Someone looked at it years ago to turn it into a barbecue store, and they were like, no, can't.
When I first started, I'd get calls every couple weeks about it. And then nothing. For a year and a half. I heard a peep. Even after I sent them letters asking them if they were going to cut the vines off the building. But that's, the beauty of this whole process is if there is a compelling reason that you see to leave it commercial, then it can be left as commercial. The planning board is essentially, they haven't made a formal recommendation, but they're proceeding in that manner at this point. But I will not be, I mean, if you want to leave it commercial, that's fine. It's the biggest drawback I see is that it gives maybe some hope to the property owner. There's some viable non-residential use of that property, which there's probably not. And it just, fishing expeditions by people that don't see other viable alternatives for leasing commercial space in Wesley Chapel, but think that it might be an option for them when it's an option for really nobody, probably.
Hunky, that's his name.
Hunky, that's right.
Yep, Hunky.
I think since, we went through and looked at the land use, we looked at our Winson plan, and yes, it may have been a commercial gas station 70 years ago. The village was a very different place at that point in time, and as that building has evolved just in the 20 years I've lived here, and been vacant at least 5 years, if not more, that to me it doesn't seem unreasonable to say it's really in a residential swath of property. It's surrounded by houses now.
Yeah, I think when it was open, it was reasonable to, and people were still kind of keeping it up, it was reasonable to have it zoned so that it could change between uses. And still, but I mean, if it's been closed for 5 years, then...
Well, I think they've kind of lost their argument of utility.
So the other similar situation, but it's kind of already been taken, NCDOT took care of it, was the old country store, convenience store, gas station, garage, whatever, down by Newtown Elementary. That some portion of that property still exists outside the right-of-way zoned, either B1 or B2, I can't recall off the top of my head.
B2.
Is it B2? Yeah.
I think so.
And it, just to, again, dissuade anyone from hiring a surveyor and attorney and coming in here and doing something very strange, it would probably be good for us to go ahead and consolidate the zoning on that piece of property. Again, it made sense while it was a viable commercial enterprise for it to be zoned so that it could remain in that use and maybe change between things if necessary, but they have been compensated by NCDOT for their loss now.
That was Carol Mullis's friend. And they thought, since they had half an acre commercial, that they should make all 25 acres commercial.
Oh, yeah. And people have called about doing that. Used to be a lot more phone calls now.
And I think it's nice that our comprehensive plan gives the clear, it's not what we want there. So we need to make our...
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always opportunities for finding unique circumstances or exceptions, and we can't be knowing of all possible circumstances or needs throughout the community, but you can certainly evaluate it versus what you've stated a desire to be. I mean, and one of the examples of that, one that the planning board, Cheryl, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is they did not want to pursue the rezoning of the property owned by the Diocese of Charlotte down there on Willow.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So we're going to leave that alone, actually. That's one they did.
What is it zoned?
It's zoned industrial.
Light industrial, yeah.
It's used for storage.
Right, it fits.
And it's the only light industrial parcel in our town, and you have to have a space for an adult business, and that is that's the one location that could
Apparently the word
be
strip club was thrown around
adult
for the
business.
Southern Wednesday location, so.
Wait, what?
The word strip club were thrown around for the old Southern Wednesday location. I was like, I mean, we can't have that, right? It clearly says the strip club.
No, that can only be in light industrial, and that would be the Catholic Church. And that would be a great strip club.
Catholic churches.
Yeah, but I was gonna make sure it was a really classy place.
A doctor strip club, officially.
No, yeah.
There's just not enough, if there's not enough parking places, I mean, it'd just be, maybe parking in the streets and all of them.
That's right, the lower parking lot, yeah.
Basement entrance.
That's right.
Nobody would know you're there.
Do they go to the block or not?
What about the park on Jim Parker Road?
I'm sorry, the what?
The park?
The park.
The Greek church?
Yeah.
The Greek church on Jim Parker Road. I don't know. I haven't given a lot of.
Didn't know about that one.
Oh, I know about it. I've been to a wedding there.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really?
You know more than us then.
Long time ago.
Elados Park? Is
That's
it?
it.
Yeah. How long has it? It's been there for
A while.
a long time.
Is it still actively used for that use?
Yeah. Does it? I mean, it's small. I mean, the building itself is, in my recollection, kind of small, and so it's potentially would still be conforming in terms of size with the changes
Small
to
church.
the zoning ordinance. It would be a small religious institution. I know they can accommodate a large number of people, for not a religious service, but for other types of gatherings if you use outside areas. But maybe we can come back to that one. Do you ever hear any complaints or? No.
No, not really.
Yeah. It's pretty far back there. I think usually once rambunctiousness starts with the music, it's inside. So we're trying to bother the neighbors.
I think it's fun wedding.
It was a fun wedding.
So they're reviewing it, they'll be bringing that back to us in November? Because they don't meet in December. Lucky y'all.
You can do that too.
Yeah, I think that the plan was to bring them now that we've kind of went through it informally with them, bring them a list of rezonings. The ordinance, the way that it reads, I think the planning board has moved to take these up, which the ordinance, as all zoning ordinances are, very kind of basically says the council, the planning board can initiate rezonings, and it says you have to fill out an application in triplicate, but I don't think the mayor and the council are filling out applications in triplicate for anything. So I think you can do it on your own motion, substitutes for any kind of actual application, because you're not paying a fee either. Right? Neither is the planning board. So I think we're moving ahead, and would bring those back to you to set public hearings after they make recommendations on them.
So at this point, the ball's in the
planning board's court.
Okay.
So they will have to make a recommendation. They will send those recommendations to you. And they may recommend some or all that we discussed.
But they're seeking direction from us.
I'm seeking direction as to, apparently people have been doing public outreach already. Would you like for me to contact everyone that has not been contacted yet? Send them letters? No? Okay.
We're still talking about it, in my opinion.
I don't know. I'd like to hear the question. What?
Well, the rezonings generally come about because you have applied, you have submitted one for your own self, and you become aware of it because you are the one that went and filed it. And there's no mechanism until it gets, 10 days before the council meeting is when we got to put it in the mail. So,
but in this case, we're initiating.
We are initiating. Yes. Well, the planning board is.
Yes. Okay.
And so there is no method specified for when, how, where we notify anyone.
Well, right now the letter would say we're thinking about rezoning your property.
Yes, there's nothing.
So until it comes from the planning board with the recommendation, what will their letter say?
And then we would call a public hearing.
Yeah, and so the problem is we have, no matter what, we have to send a letter between 10 and 25 days. I know we're going to spend $10 on $20 on mailing. It's not a huge expense. But if we sent people letters tomorrow, we still have to notify them again. And we could notify people several weeks ahead of time. That's not typically what we do, because then, for a lot of reasons. But so I just wanted, before somebody came in here and started yelling about how they just found out about this 5 days ago, or
All they have to do is read the meeting minutes. I think it's great for the planning board to take it back and for us to look for that consistency of how we're doing, because I feel like if you start getting too many individuals with their hands in the pot too soon and everything else, I think it's just going to really make the planning board's job difficult.
right. And my personal preference for planning boards is that they not be the ones directly engaging with the public, since they're not elected officials. They're there to do a job for you. They represent the community, but that's, getting them yelled at by somebody doesn't
And
necessarily.
we'll have a planning board, a public hearing.
Right, there's no public hearing at the planning board.
Opportunity to speak, and we'll go through the process.
I guess what you could do is, at the time that we bring these back to you, to decide whether or not to set, because you don't even have to set a public hearing if you don't like it, right? Say, oh, we don't want to do this. You don't have to do anything about it. At that point, you could decide, A, when the public hearings would be, and B, if you wanted any kind of additional outreach.
Solid plan, correct, Council? Yes.
Thank you, Mom.
All right. Anything else on comprehensive plan?
This is maybe just a general, but so after we do this, what do you want to do next?
Is this when we need to clean up, start to clean up our ordinances and make? What is our next cleanup task? What's the next logical next step?
Well, and one that we talked about a lot was the standards for conservation subdivisions.
Okay.
Want to revisit that to improve how it performs and maybe make it more dry. I think that with the current sewer situation, it's kind of marginal as to. So these people I've been talking to, they've been, so we'll just come in with big lots and worry about it later.
I mean, when they so they can do stuff.
Right, I think the county, even though they may not be as interested in using it now, I think there still are some. It's like the gentleman I've been talking to, Newtown Road and Cuthbertson across the street there. They would like to do a conservation subdivision, and yeah, they would like some different standards, not more units or anything like that. They just like a little bit more opportunity to have some flexibility with how things are arranged.
How big is that parcel?
I think they can get like 40.
There's no trees on that property, is there?
That's fine. We'll plant some. They'll plant some.
There's some back there.
Yeah, there's some back in the back. There's some floodplain back in the back, but they would actually have to plant some trees. But we'd make them do that, no, the conservation subdivision or not.
This is the same piece of property that was going to be the solar farm?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Part of
Just
it.
across the street from that intersection.
I think it's next to it, isn't it?
Yeah. That solar
The one that was a chicken farm?
It was like
I don't know if there's a chicken.
many more acres than that.
It's to the west of Molly. Is it
Molly Irene.
Molly Irene?
No, Molly Irene is over here.
Another strange private road name.
I'd never buy a house out there. You can see the cell phone tower. And that just
It'd be blinking at you. Blinking at you.
Have they started building the cell phone tower yet?
They're probably never going to build that thing.
You don't think so?
I mean, it would seem that they would. I don't know.
They'll do a lot of trouble if they're not.
Oh, they don't. They print money.
You could throw some on.
I mean, I think that they have. I I guess, some kind of right to do that for some period of time. But I don't know all the ins and outs of the settlement. I don't think it's a forever. I wouldn't. I mean, we changed the ordinance though, so I mean, it would be easy for them to come back and do it.
Right.
Maybe we can convince them to go somewhere else. Maybe Todd will want to.
They could be right in the center of the roundabout there. Castle. All right, anything else on Rockaway? So that leads us to consider approval of resolution 2022-18 to designate Cuthbertson and Road as a non-collector and add to the NC Federal Rate System. Ron, do you want to speak to this before we?
Sure. This is an action of many that will be taken over the years, I would imagine, to get the ability to improve Cuthbertson Road with funding, proper designations of what the road is. But this is kind of a first step that we discussed when the mayor and I met with Jeff and the councilwoman from Waxhaw, is actually getting this thing reclassified from a local road to a real road, given that it's carrying 10,000 to 12,000 cars a day. Bjorn actually has his traffic counters out there right now. So if you feel like going up and down the road a few times, as Mr. Rulli suggested, then feel free to do so. I am making an extra run over to
Don't bring your gun.
Don't do it between the hours of like 4 and 6.
Yeah. I actually did that over in Harrisburg to try and spike a TIA.
Did you tell Mr. Rulli?
I did not.
He'll get it done.
It was a video count, so they saw who it was.
Oh, really?
I have no doubt that everybody on Cuthbertson Road is aware of those cameras right now.
Yeah.
But
Many times that traffic going down.
Anyway, so I guess Bjorn took it upon himself to go ahead and put this resolution together. I don't know if they felt like they were being left out or what, but hey, and to do the traffic counts, because he wants to see if it's changed, and I think it probably has. So the purpose of the resolution is to support, get CRTPO support, to get NCDOT's support to changing the classification of the road to a minor collector. I asked why it shouldn't be a major collector.
What's the difference?
Yeah.
Bjorn said, well, the part Kensington's a minor collector. I'm not going to fight with them. If they're willing to do the paperwork, we can change it. It's not that it doesn't mean anything, but it doesn't. I mean, it means something.
What if it comes back to traffic count and he's got like 1 billion cars? Is he going to want to change it to major?
Maybe.
And then would he be looking for that whole corridor for Cuthbertson?
Well, my question was, why don't we make it I even said it could be a minor arterial because it goes between 521 and basically 84, for all intents and purposes. Or at least 16 and 521, 2 Newtown Road, 2 84. He said, he said Kensington's already minor collector. And there's a long, probably heard stories about Kensington and Jim, whatever it is that goes over into Lancaster County. But
Jim Wilson?
Yes, Jim Wilson. But this would make it eligible for federal maintenance funding and improvement funding, which it's not now because it's technically a dirt track in the middle of nowhere. It is a step. This goes basically through CRTPO. It'll get updated in the Comprehensive Transportation Plan. It'll go to NCDOT's unit that manages functional classifications. I'm doing this somewhere else. Apparently they don't get a lot of requests because nobody knows what's going on. Probably happens a little bit more around here though. But it's just a step in the process really at this point. And, he said this, and then I talked to him last week at CRTPO, during last week at CRTPO, and he said, I've got traffic counters out, so I don't know if we want, and then he emailed this evening saying, well, Waxhaw's got 1/1500th of a mile of this thing on their PAL bill map that nobody in Waxhaw knew anything about until today. And Cheryl asked if we really needed to. I think he said he was going to do his at their November meeting. I didn't know if that was going to conflict with. Be too soon, too late to get. I don't know if we want to go ahead and adopt a resolution now, and if there's a better resolution to adopt 4 weeks from now, adopt that one in its place.
This could at least get the ball rolling and show our support.
So 2 questions. If we approve this resolution, is it going to help efforts with?
It will help.
With Cuthbertson Road?
It will help.
Is there anything in here that would hurt efforts with Cuthbertson Road?
So the only thing that it does is it declares our collective intent, Waxhaw, Wesley Chapel, Union County, for Cuthbertson Road to be the road that it has become.
Okay.
And so when somebody says, well, it's just a local road, we say, well, no, we've supported and now NCDOT has designated as a collector road that's meant to actually take traffic between arterials.
Yeah.
So
Then I'll make a motion we approve resolution 2022-18.
Second. Any further discussion?
Yes. So if they find out on the counting thing that it's 40,000 vehicles a day, are we wasting our time of approving this resolution when we have to approve another resolution next time? You see what I'm saying?
Oh, well, we've already discussed it, and it just depends on whether our mayor minds signing another one. Whether Cheryl.
It's not a big deal. It's just, okay.
And then
This-
we can say, oh, it's probably worse than we thought it was going to be. The road's worse than we even thought.
We can go ahead and get it signed and sent off to Bjorn's to ask him if he thinks it's worth us doing it again. But I didn't even want you to change the thing about Waxhaw because the engineers, the PEs in Waxhaw were confused as to why that section of Cuthbertson Road was showing up Powellville map because apparently them certifying it with their signature each year isn't good enough to investigate which roads are actually there or not. So.
My only concern is if we turn down any resolution that may help Cuthbertson Road,
no, we will.
I'm moving out of Wesley Chapel.
We can adopt this thing. We can adopt this resolution every month.
No, I was thinking, the reason I ask it is because I was thinking that once he discovers how big of a problem it is, if it does, in fact, prove that it's a lot more vehicles per day, that he might wish he'd waited and done a major one. That's all I was saying.
Well, we can always still change that.
It was really, really, really bad.
We can still, that can still be changed too.
Okay.
I don't think he's going to want to change it because, I don't know, transportation people are funny like that.
Could you just say as a minor or a major collector road?
I think we need.
That would offend Bjorn?
No, yeah. I tried to call the intersection of 16 and Cuthbertson a major commercial center. He said, I don't think that's very major. In the scheme of Charlotte, sure, but this is Union County.
How is Newtown classified?
How is it?
Newtown Road.
I think it's a minor arterial. I think.
It's not major, I know.
It is not major because that is
16 is major. It's a major
16
road.
should be it's
it's
probably just a minor arterial south.
Either way.
The problem is that
between them is to your earlier points. I just wanted to know for reference.
NCDOT, if you get bored, NCDOT has a map online. It's actually in the comp plan too. That you can an online GIS, you can zoom in on stuff, but the functional classification map.
Yeah.
The problem is that the transportation planning organizations that are responsible for adopting the plans and changing the functional classification of the roads don't, for whatever reason. reason.
Because they're so busy with
Especially in rural, growing areas, they just leave everything alone. I'm recommending like 20 changes for one community because it hasn't been changed apparently since maybe the early 90s, maybe before that.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Unanimous? All right, is Vaughn wanting to go? Can we talk about living real quick before we talk about the real policy? So at the last women meeting, so just so y'all know, Weddington, Marvin, I don't know what Middle Springs is going to do anymore. Waxhaw apparently went to the county 2 or 3 weeks ago and asked for ETJ.
Who did?
Waxhaw. Waxhaw, like the day after our meeting, was meeting with the county to ask for ETJ. They weren't expecting a yes. So after they got their no, they were planning to take it on to the state.
That's interesting.
What was their justification?
They're really upset about some things the county has done within their borders.
No, what was the county's justification for denying?
Oh, well, they hadn't officially denied it. And I don't know what happened in their meeting because I haven't talked to Waxhaw.
Okay.
But they were not thinking it would get approved just because of how commissioners have acted about ETJ. Like in the meeting when they said, well, why do we get over this? You know, or if you get to go say what happens outside of your borders, do we get to say what happens, you know, inside your town? Like we get ETJ in your town. So they haven't been very nice about it. But so Weddington, Marvin, and Stallings, and Union Trout, no, Weddington, Marvin, Stallings. Who am I leaving out?
Middle Springs.
And I don't know what Middle Springs is going to do because Rick and
My impression of them is they don't want.
But Rick and Ron kind of got into it after the last women meeting. I left because I didn't want to be part of it. But so I know at least Weddington, Marvin, and Stallings are probably going to move forward with asking the county directly for ETJ by the end of the year. And I kept, every meeting I've said, I don't know if Wesley Chapel's going to participate. We had it once and it was apparently not good. The concern is for them that the county, and Jonathan Thomas was there, and he spoke to the fact that the county adopted this comprehensive plan and said there were going to be
Transition
zones. However, there's no committee or no work being done to establish what the rules are around this comprehensive transition zones. Like what, if something came up in one of those transition zones, what is the process? And the county has never said officially, like, this is how we're going to handle it. Whereas they've had a committee for everything else, the litter pickup, everything else. They've figured out how they're going to implement it. So Jeff wanted me to bring it back and ask for an official so their plan is they're going to go to the county and they're going to ask for ETJ, and the county's going to say no, and then they're going to go to the state and they're going to ask for ETJ. So he wants to know if we are going to participate or not, and we can stand with them and all go to the county, or we can. He said, y'all are just going to watch and see what happens to us. And I was like, maybe.
Oh, pretty much.
Sounds great. So, but I just need an official something from council, an official direction, because I don't want to go and speak on behalf of the 5 of us. And I don't even vote unless it's done.
I think we have different needs and wants than what Marvin has, than what Middle Springs or Weddington have. And based on that, it would be great if all of us could, well together, we could really start pushing the county into some decisions, but we don't all have the same needs and wants.
I agree.
I'm not sure if I agree or disagree. How are our needs and wants different than Weddington or Marvin or Middle Springs? We all want to protect what is within our assumed limits, and we want to be
somewhat involved with what happens outside of those limits.
Are we more concerned about the edges of Wesley Chapel or the donut holes in Wesley Chapel?
Is that a difference?
I think so. I mean, you look at the property right across from the Wesley Oak subdivision that was the senior housing project that was under the control of the county. We got lucky on that. But at the same time...
That's the only time we've ever listened to that.
Right. But at the same time, and I would consider that in the heart of Wesley Chapel, in that donut. But something further out that would be less contentious, it's damned if you do and damned if you don't. And as planning board members, previous planning boards, you and Deb, how many people on the planning board do you think are going to give up their seats for someone outside of Wesley Chapel?
You would have to give it up, you just add.
You add.
I'm not sure we're prepared to fully understand the implications of ETJ, much less for us to be able to administratively support it with our limited staff and other things to the extent of the larger municipalities can. That would be my concern.
I would agree with that.
With our size, that is definitely a factor. Because we have looked at the ramifications over the years several times in the way the pros and the cons. And it's never been a road we've been eager to go down.
But that one time they got it, and they're going to take it away.
Well, I think if you look back how far back that was, it was a different time. We had different development, we had different needs.
It was 2006. Mm-hmm.
I do think that if we don't go forward with it, I think maybe council needs to draft some sort of response to the county that we're not. Well, I mean, we could say we support them asking for it, but maybe we say we're not asking for ETJ, trusting you're going to honor the transition zone and work with us in the future and get them somewhere in writing to say, yeah.
That's a good idea. Right.
And then
Because
when they don't, then we can say, hey, we were trusting you and you dropped it off. I like that.
So we don't just leave ourselves hanging. Like, we're trusting in your transition zones. These are them. And how are you, if something comes up, how are you going to address it? And make them talk to us about it.
You look negative over there. Are you getting hurt on that?
I don't think so. I mean, to Laura's point, I don't think I understand it enough really to make a viable decision. However, we need, I mean, if ETJ is a tool to help us with the donut holes, is it?
I mean, what's problem are we trying to solve? Just to keep
the county from upzoning our donut holes.
Yeah.
Or putting commercial in our donut holes.
They will put commercial in your donut holes.
But is ETJ a tool to help us prevent that?
Yes.
Because you approved the zoning,
Right.
not the county.
So perhaps one item that we should consider sooner than later is an education session, perhaps for planning board and council on ETJ.
Well, the guy came out from the school of government and gave a presentation to women. So let's see. But I mean, we asked them to come out and talk to us.
I'm just saying that way that
Can you do a
everybody
session like
truly
that?
understands all the ins and outs and maybe have a better discussion about it.
Vaughn, do you have an opinion on this?
Do I have an opinion? No.
No?
My opinion is that county governments don't have any business being involved in regulating land use. That's my opinion. And my other opinion that goes along with that is that people that don't live inside of municipalities don't have any business developing their land at any appreciable density. So, which those can be competing popular and unpopular opinions depending on who you're talking to.
But on to your first point, then, what if it's county property?
County owned it.
County owned property, yeah.
Well, we got county-owned property in town now. The county-owned, well, an appendage of the county owns schools.
Yeah, okay.
The county buys the land, and it goes back to them if they dispose of it.
But isn't it also like our subdivision and Lindenwood and half the other subdivisions where the county
I think things would be better if
zoned it and then...
Wesley Chapel had much greater influence over what was, for various reasons, within and around it. It creates a lot of fun public relations problems when you're exercising legal authority over people who don't vote for you. And I feel their pain. But
it would be much easier if all the municipalities have touching borders and no unincorporated county in the middle.
That's really what I would. My suggestion to WUMA would be to go, if you're going to go to Raleigh with anything, let's
I would also add,
incorporate everything west of Monroe. But they
I
probably
think this next election will really show how the county is going to change over the next 8 to 10 years. The election that's coming up, depending on how things go, could keep the course the same or could do a 180, depending on who gets elected and what their specific agenda is. I think the time to have this conversation is the first of the year and not in October, because by then hopefully we'll know what happens.
Who's getting elected? You already know who's getting elected. Whoever wins primary wins in a red county. In a red county. Whoever wins primary wins the election.
There are some factors that will be known better come January than what we know now that I think will help sway our decision one way or the other. So what I can't speak for our council, obviously, but kicking the can down the road on this case might be the wise thing to do without making a firm commitment one way or the other.
Well, I agree with your point and I agree with Lori's point, and that will give us time to do both. If we kicked it down the road and held off, it would give us a chance to really better educate ourselves as to the nuances that we can chat about.
Do you want me to reach out to the person and see if they could do a joint meeting with council planning board?
I think so are we still going to send a thing to the county saying we trust you, or
We don't trust them.
yeah, but they don't have to know that.
But actually,
It's on the record.
I think getting that on the record now would be good.
Well, we could send a letter asking how they're planning to implement transition zones, couldn't we? Inquiring.
Hold their feet to the fire, say, hey, you said you were going to do this. We'd like to see the details.
One of the issues right now is they kind of get off without having to worry about it because
There's
no
no
sewer.
Well, yeah, but that's a dodge. That's an excuse.
Well, but nobody's going to test them. I don't think, because nobody's going to put anything under contract for an indeterminate amount. I mean, because it's like, well, I'm going to go get finance from somebody. How long? It's like I don't know, like when.
Right.
So the county's kind of in a fortunate position if they don't, if they want to do whatever they want to do.
So I'll just report back to London that we're going to hold off. We're going to educate council on where as a whole, and we want to kind of see where the election is.
Well,
I
I'm
see
pushing.
lots of requests from Western Union County going to the state.
Right? Everybody in line.
One of the things I'd like to get your feedback on is WUMA discussed this issue at all, and are they planning to?
I can add it to our. We will meet before, so I can add it to the agenda.
Do you think the group that was here tonight would be interested in coming to a WUMA meeting as well to give a similar presentation?
Or have they already given it to all the other councils?
Yeah.
I do think they've probably gone to all the councils.
Yeah.
But I can double check.
Well, if they have, great, but I'd still like to get a consensus from the WUMA organization, how they're moving forward and what, if any, pushback they're getting from their residents on this bond issue.
just, from past experience, I just feel like if a bond's not going to be approved, it's going to be this one because of the location of the schools that they're concentrating on. Forest Hills and East, it's way over there, and it's just not most of the county's concern. And it's benefiting, instead of all the schools, it's benefiting two. And I don't know, I just don't see it.
But
You don't think it's going to happen?
No.
the thing that irritates me the most is the wealthiest part of the county won't even notice the tax increase.
Right.
Less than $100 a
But you say tax increase, that's
forward.
That's it. They don't care how much. It's just a tax increases, period. But I really don't think
And
there's.
there's, cut your nose off to spite your face.
Well, I think part of that is an education thing as well, because, you know, if every resident in Wesley Chapel had to pay an extra $100, I think they could probably swing that. The problem is, most people are telling me when I run into them and talk to them about the economy, is they said, look, we're already getting pressed from every side. The last thing we want to do is raise taxes. And that's a legitimate concern, but at the same time, if we don't invest in infrastructure now, when? So, it's a double-edged sword. But like anything else, I think there'd be plenty of money to go around if we just stop wasting so much of it at the county level, in my opinion. But I don't want to get on my soapbox.
So, Mel, do you think we should send anything about the transition zones right now, or just wait?
Well, if the people that are going to, if the majority that will be responsible for ultimately implementing it over the next 2 years is going to change.
Well, there would be two new people coming in, so probably wait till after the election.
If the answer might change between now and December when they have their organizational meeting, then you might as well just.
Okay, we'll wait.
I would say January, revisit
Okay.
the issue.
All right. Okay.
And we may kick the can down the road there too, because we don't know what's going on.
Well, there's no sewer in there. Then that's fine. That's a great next couple of years for us. Yeah. We might be able to get some ordinances cleaned up. So that leads us to our consider approval of the revised. Thank you, Vaughn.
See you soon.
Town
Be
hall.
safe.
We don't about those mailboxes.
I emailed them.
Okay, good, thank you.
Cheryl, you want to talk about this?
Sure. There's some questions that have come up recently, and this is probably the busiest time of the year. We have a lot of HOAs do their annual meeting here. But there seemed to be some confusion, and so I thought it seemed like it was time for a new policy.
Yeah, because we don't have some of the things that they say on this other one, we don't even have. Like the audio-visual capabilities and microphones and speakers and projectors.
Yeah,
And
we're probably just stuff.
you know, we don't have any of that.
Well, we used to have a cordless mic for this program. We got stolen. None of those stolen. The guy that came to fix the RV stuff one day, there was a cordless mic that was attached to this and it just disappeared. It's not the box, we just on the microphone.
Wow.
And that goes back 8 years.
So this was just to make a simple, clear policy, and it has a little reservation form at the bottom.
And I did notice that one of the changes is our insurance company says that we should have a COI for anybody who runs it.
Right, you say,
It says that any time, where is that?
Are HOAs considered nonprofits, or are they?
Whatever, I had one asked this week about it, and I said, you need an insurance certificate? And I got one.
So I think it was saying that HOAs do, but, so it says,
Yeah, I asked him specifically in an email.
or organizations running, individuals or organizations running town properties need to provide their own general liability coverage either through their homeowner's policy or a separate general liability policy, often referred to as a special events policy.
Any HOA, the management company is going to have a certificate of insurance. And,
I like the simplicity of it.
yeah,
You know, I think you did a good job.
thank you.
And it says homeowner's policy will typically cover homeowners facilities. So like you could probably run that from there. Oh, civic groups. Most civic groups are insured for general liability and should have no problem providing the town's certificate of insurance name of the town as an additional insured. JC's, Lions Clubs, Boys, Girl Scouts, Shriners, or churches. So,
I assume you were trying to get this to be one page, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that some of the emphasis is lost on a few things that if we spread it out, so like when you get to the like, drinks, taking, things like that, when it's in a paragraph form, you just kind of breeze over it. You don't see it, whereas if it was a bulleted list. And then like at the bottom, it's like, oh, we're talking about you make your reservations, your cancellation. And then this insurance thing is just kind of tacked on, and it should be a little more standalone, like a separate paragraph or something about the insurance. So I would just say maybe make it 2 pages, but make it really clear some of these things aren't that easy to overlook. Everybody else or skip.
Make it more visually easy to understand when you're having things bulleted, like.
Yeah.
Notate.
That's how most people's minds will
Right,
read.
right.
It's much more of a bullet than a paragraph.
Yeah, we have something very similar for Cabana in our neighborhood. And every time there's a birthday party, I'm over there pulling staples out of the wood. Because people are putting up crepe paper.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like if you have a list where it's very clear, it's on there. It's like they say, well, we didn't know that. It's like right here, not bigger than a paragraph. But that would be my recommendation.
all right, so do we want to approve this, council? You want to motion?
Approve with the board's modifications.
Yeah.
Yep, I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Was that a motion?
Yes, it was a motion to approve with the modifications that the board recommended.
And then any further discussion? All in favor? And the council comments, who wants to go first?
I
Okay.
You look surprised. I've just noticed in our minutes that the council president, there's no first name put there. It's just like Mayor Fuller, Mayor Pro Tem Boyce. And the thing that, as a person who's done research in minutes, looked up historical documentations and stuff, and I just think it would be easier and more informative if we had our first names there. Like, and it could be, others present, they've got first names listed. So, council present. And then, of course, second reference as it goes on down the minutes, then obviously just the last name. But it's just a point of clarity. I think it would be good. Because in 10 years, nobody's going to know, who Deb Bledsoe was. And if anybody looks it up and needs to do something, and they want to know what the mayor's first name was. You know what I'm saying? So I just think it wouldn't be that difficult. It wouldn't be that much more work.
Did you mean just at the very top to do that?
Yeah, just at the very top
Okay,
where it says
that's
council
fine.
present.
That's fine.
Present, and just add everybody's first name.
Mm-hmm. That's fine. I can do that.
Simple thing.
Okay. That's my thing.
I'll go next.
Okay.
Short and sweet. Well, I understand that Amy was the spearhead for the National Night Out event. Is that right? Kudos to her and all that she did, because that was a great event. The time that I was there, everybody that I talked to, from long-time residents to new residents to well, we were not residents, we just wanted to see the fire trucks. I had a great time.
Is that your short one?
That's my short and sweet.
No quote?
No quote.
We are a few things, like Mike pointed out, we need a trash can next time and a few other things. I think Amy talked about maybe setting it up a little bit differently so it really didn't feel so spaced out. But Deb, could you help us do a Facebook post with some of the pictures? I know Amy took some.
That's fine. Yeah,
I
send it
took
to
some. Julie Thomas took a bunch. So,
message them to
maybe
them.
just to thank our to thank our partners.
Mm-hmm. You just tell me what, list what you need on there and email me the pictures on this one.
And then we are going to push back. I think we're going to just, with the holidays and stuff, and to give us a little more time, we're going to do the chat with the mayor in November, the first Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And then that means we won't have it in December because of the holiday. And we'll pick it up in January, and I'll have one to ask one of you to be with me. There's nothing in February, and keep on going. So Deb and I'll try to work on that, get it advertised because I don't think there's going to be a big stampede to come talk. It'll be, I could write out, I'm going to write on a piece of paper who's coming, and I'm going to seal it in the envelope, and we'll see if I'm right.
You just wait till word gets out, we're going to put the strip club on Halloween.
Put that up next door before you go to bed. I promised that when he came in, he was upset, and that's what he said. He said, well, what if I wanted to do a strip club thing? So,
Of all the things
Right.
random to do.
He's an undercover cop.
So he's going right for the jugular. But I don't remember what I was talking about.
The chapel thing.
Oh, so hopefully Deb and I can get that publicized in the next week or so for November 7th. Right before the election. Please come on. All right. Anything next?
So I would just like to remind everybody that the election is November 8th. We supposedly have early voting, although Union County Board of Elections has chosen not to post anything about early voting yet, dates, times, or locations on their website. So we just have to assume that some of it was short, who knows what might happen. So,
I have some info, and I was going to post it tomorrow.
no, I mean, the county website does nothing.
Well, they sent us something. I don't
They
know.
have not updated their website, which people are going to come to Westwood Chapel to find out about a county election. It's ridiculous. But anyway, just encourage everyone you know and everybody else to vote, just from the standpoint that, you know, presidential election years tend to generate a lot more turnout, and these elections can be just as important, especially with school bond donors. We just really need people to show up. Really don't care how you vote, just vote.
Don't early vote often.
No.
John was telling me stories about vans full of people would come up, spend an hour at the voting place, get back in the van, and go to another one.
I didn't know twice.
Well, since you don't show your ID.
Was illegal in North Carolina.
John was telling me stories earlier to us.
He told me too. They are scary stories, yes.
I have only one comment, Mayor Council comment, which is just an apology. I have officially screwed up my perfect record on attendance. I missed the Parks and Rec meeting. First time in 10 years I missed any meetings at all. I was not present at the last Parks and Rec meeting, so I no longer have perfect attendance.
Repentance is donuts next week.
Why did you miss it? I hope you were taking the right on the trip. If not, I need you to mix them. I need you to miss the next one and take your wife on a trip.
Well, it was something came up at the very last minute that was unavoidable that I missed my very first meeting in 10 years.
And we were going to give you an award and everything.
No, I screwed up.
Now, just,
Your
you know.
flag has been sent back.
If you don't take your wife on a trip, your flag is going to be your grace.
Actually,
Have bigger problems.
I did pay to have my mother-in-law fly in next week to spend a week with my wife.
I think you're going to hotel.
Where are you planning to go?
As
Yeah.
soon as she gets here, they're jumping in the car and going to Wilmington. See my daughter.
Well, we're all human. We all still get comes up. It's totally fine.
Motion to approve. Or motion to motion to adjourn.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No.
Aye, aye.
You all have to, you all can go home.